Hi, you are listening to Real Talk with me, Ali, and my friend Avril on the Post-Burnout Growth podcast. And today's topic for you is all about redefining success, which we kind of decided was something we wanted to share with you today. So we are delighted that you are here with us. So let's settle in. Avril,
Hello.
redefining success.
I laugh because I was just thinking, should this be one episode or the whole the whole podcast?
Yeah.
Um, because it is a huge topic, not just the magnitude of it, but also the depth
Mm.
of what it means to redefine success in the midst of burnout, but also as one is traveling that journey through to post burnout growth. But Ali, why don't you kick us off with what what let me just put you on the spot there. What does it mean for you? I was just wondering, maybe let's talk about it in terms of the quick, messy action we're taking with creating this
Mm.
podcast, with, putting ourselves out there, with letting ourselves be seen. Two girls who used to be corporate, leaders at some point. What does redefining success mean to you now? How does showing up
Ooh, I
now
love
mean?
I
What is
love
this?
that. I love that. You set it up for me there because you got me thinking about the fact that, you know, success is very much subjective. And it's a word that gets banded around right, left, and center, online, in the workplace, in life. And when each of us mentions that word success in a conversation, I kind of notice there's, in some respects, a unspoken, universal understanding or sense of what that means. But actually, it doesn't mean the same for everyone.
Hmm.
And I think this is where we trip up. And I definitely have tripped up on that. That's the thing that invites things like comparisonitis, not enoughness, feeling a sense of lack and scarcity mindset in our lives. Oh, I'm not successful. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'm not capable. And all the other inner critic narratives and stories of the day. Again, a conversation for another podcast, but I feel it's very much linked into how us humans make the words that we use success.
Mm.
But also your prompter was about how we saw success or how success was seen by others in the corporate workplace
Hmm.
versus how success is seen by us now, today, as we are here together, and how it's seen in our lives that we live now, which is not in corporate. So, redefining success, as you said, is a huge topic for anyone, for us, and where to begin. But I wanted to begin with the let's just take a moment to acknowledge that success is subjective
Hmm.
and that the power is in our hands to define it and define what it means for us. And if you take nothing else from today's podcast, I'd like you to consider that it's
Hmm.
up to you to decide it. It's up to you to design it. It's up to you to say what it is and what it isn't. It's up to you to be flexible with what success is and isn't. And that flexibility, arguably, is in part what has brought Avril and I together on this podcast. We aren't doing any flashy, pre produced show stuff. We're literally rocking up and we are sharing in the moment, in the present moment. And I think in one of the other podcasts, you mentioned about childlike playfulness and fun because they're
Hmm.
in the moment. And as adults, we tend not to be in the moment. And so, redefining success, one big tick for me and for us is the courage to be in the moment not pre-plan, not try to pre-control or preempt how this conversation's even going to go, what we're even going
Mm,
to share. Apart from the headline, redefining success, that's all we've talked about. We haven't prepped for this. We are showing up authentically from our heart space. And
mm,
for me, that's success. I mean, there's so many elements of that that I see as success is the fact that we've showed up as Avril invited me to go along with her in this journey of quick, messy action. And I'll be forever grateful for that. Because would I have done that before in corporate? Hell no. I had a reputation, I had people eyes on me, I had a certain standard to uphold. Sure, I had colleagues say, "Oh, you're really polished, Alison." I didn't think I was polished. Oh, you're really successful. You're like superwoman. Da 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 da. Um, and to them, that was success, but for me, that was burnout.
mm.
So
Yeah.
redefining success, we're definitely going to have to talk about this
A
on
lot
more
more.
on more than one podcast. But I'm gonna take a beat there and check in and see what did that bring up for you.
I loved when you said design because as he was speaking there, I it got the sense of that even with defining and redefining success again, it's never one of those, it's not an arrival point. It's not a one and done. Um, what I learned from the burnout journey was that it was a huge moment of standing still enough to notice all of these measures of success that I had for myself, for my life, for my corporate career, for my financial status, all of these outward markers of success. Um, they were so rooted in achievement and accomplishment. Nothing wrong with any of that, but it was almost always outside of me. And for me, getting to burnout and arriving at burnout, if nothing else, was that journey of really taking a hard look at what I had made success mean. I think he used that language as well. And now was this real moment of reckoning. Like, what was it going to start to become for me? Can I autonomously choose my own measures of success? How will I know inside of myself, even if no one else can see on the outside, if no one else had this information on my job title, my bank balance, where I live, what I do? What does it mean for me to be successful on the inside, where up until that point of burnout it had meant a whole bunch of things.
Mm,
um and the fact that I could continue to think I would say, first of all, look at, like this year, I've got a few things that make me think when I meet these measures, I will notice a sense of, okay, this is what will signal to me, this is what successful feels like. So to use the very present moment, me um, a finding someone on LinkedIn, a collaborator, someone who shares a similar heart space, someone who's on a similar mission. These were just ideas I had, but I had this very real sense that I was going to definitely find, to use the words, my virtual teammate, and that has been you, Alison, to then create a piece of work, to publish this content, to have these real conversations, in pursuit of that mission. One of my goals for this year was to become visible. I had always
mm,
been visible. I had been visible on big teams, in big organizations, in my life, amongst my friends. But how was I going to now, as the owner of my business and as someone who works for myself, how was I going to choose to become visible, and to what degree in a virtual world? How much of this exposure is, enough for me? So I think that second point around for me has been, how does the measure of success continue to evolve? Is it still serving me? Is this healthy? Does this align with my energy levels? Because only I can know within myself if this feels like success, if this feels wholesome and healthy, or whether I
mm,
am falling back into a pattern of unhealthy striving and performing to use the words, for the crowd. So
mm,
that's what brought up for me when I heard you say the words design. been very much thought about success as being something that is now living within me and is an inside out expression of self rather than only looking to the, and I think we've talked about this in another podcast episode, looking to the outside, wholly looking to the outside for those external markers of validation and attention.
Mm. Gosh,
Where did I go
so
to?
no, it just it evokes so many different thoughts and memories and realizations. And my neurodivergent brain is swimming. Um, I really loved how you said about wholesome and healthy. That really resonated with me because when coming back to the real crux, the real, I'm going to just use these words, complete meltdown
Hmm.
of burning out and melting down for me was primarily a physical breakdown, as in health breakdown.
Yes.
The mental aspect was definitely not in good shape, but the physical was screaming at me, you have to
Mm.
stop, you have to
Yeah.
change things. And by, I can't think of what the right word is here now, but by in having that experience and what you said about wholesome and healthy was actually the driving force for me to do everything that I'm doing now. Was
Hmm.
that if I don't have energy, it doesn't matter if I have all the time in the world. If I don't have the energy, I can't spend the time. Unless everybody, oh, time's your most important resource. Yes, it is alongside energy. Energy, bring the right energy, time becomes exponentially more valuable. But on its own, no. And so until you really hit that bottom of being so utterly, you just can't get the engine started. You
Hmm.
just cannot get the engine just doesn't want to start. Whatever way you want to express that or tune into that for yourself, but that utter sense of depletion and exhaustion and kind of void and emptiness of I just don't have the again, I'm going to use the word vitality is definitely the one that feels the word that brings a lot of things together for me is without that vitality, nothing else really is possible. And building a business by yourself is exhausting.
Hmm.
We've touched upon other podcast episodes about we didn't want to burn ourselves out in the process of even making the podcast because you
Yeah.
have you have burnout that can be caused by chronic unmanaged workplace stress. You can have burnout, which is actually passion burnout, which, for example, I've been there quite close a couple of times in the last 4 years because I've been so passionately wanting to make something come to life to share with others. And it's that experience that's shaping how we show up now as we do this podcast. I'm like, well, we
Hmm.
can do this, but we don't need to burn ourselves out in the process. And
Hmm.
then you've got neurodivergence burnout because of the way that my brain operates and processes that in itself is exhausting. So, there's lots of different avenues or environmental conditions,
Yeah.
mind conditions, body conditions in life that can contribute to your overall sense of vitality and well being. And most importantly, your capacity for life.
Mm.
And when you don't have that energy, you don't have the capacity to meet the demands of life. So, I mean, the ultimate redefining success factor for me probably has to be how is my health? How is my energy?
Yeah.
Um, do I have the energy? Do I have the capacity? And because of that energy and capacity, where's my appetite for life? Are those
Hmm.
showing up for me? And I think in redefining success is that if I've got those things, everything else is a bonus.
I love that. I love that. You've preempted me there. I was going to ask, what are your to use words markers of success, but basically what are those touch points where you are coming back to your sense of, why as well. Um, what you said
Mm.
there about, like, for me, there's a health, good health, time affluence, which is not just the quantity of time, but the quality of time and how I'm able to spend that with the things that and the relationships that matter to me. And I also had energy on there as well. And it's like in every moment when I feel, even now, drawn out or pulled out of myself, coming back to these two or three things and going, what is it that I'm, wanting to express? What is it for myself, but also what is it that I'm wanting to achieve? What is the impact I'm wanting to create? What will tell me I'm still here and still able to do it? It will always come back to good health, time, affluence, and energy. Because, as you so beautifully said, we can be making all of the things happen for us, we can be producing all of the results, and it can still, there can be a sense of a void or an emptiness. It was definitely my experience with burnout too, because the energy is just not there. That energy tank is empty and then some. Um, and to be alive in the world and to create from that place is just, it's not even an uphill task. You've got to really stop and look at what's happening in there. So I love what you said about the piece around health and energy, and noticing that within ourselves. We did record a conversation on, starting with why and why that's important as well. So we will link that in show notes if that
Mm.
is a conversation that some of you might be interested in listening to as well. As we start to draw this conversation to a close, and I have a strong sense, Ali, this is going to be one of many conversations of redefining success. Um, what would you say would be a practical step our listeners could take? Just one thing they could do to start thinking about redefining success, and moving forwards.
Um, ooh, big, big question. Where to begin? I don't ever profess to have all the answers or to have all the right answers, but I think in terms of sharing an idea about redefining success, um, the energy piece is probably going to stand out for me over and above everything else, that I have the energetic capacity to do things. And forgive me, I'm probably going to slightly digress here now, but just by way of explanation, that we have four types of energy: our physical energy, which is the quantity of our energy. And then we have emotional energy, which is the quality of our energy. And then we have our mental energy, which is the focus of our energy. And then finally, we have the spiritual energy, which is our purpose energy, our reason for being. What really makes our life truly meaningful and feel worth doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, physical energy sits at the base of all of that. And so it's hard for me, as much as I can come up with a whole bunch of other questions that people could ask themselves that maybe relate to the different energy types I've just mentioned. Um, as in focus, what do you really want to focus on? What really grabs you? What really makes you feel good, gives you, what enhances the quality of your emotional life. It might be the relationships that you have. And having the right people in your life might be the definition of success. But all of those things are kind of arbitrary unless back to the basics, again, back to foundations. I'm a big believer in strong foundations
Mm-hmm.
because I personally haven't had them in place. And I've felt the consequence of not having them in place versus having them, that strongly is, how can you really resource yourself from the ground up? What do you really need in order to live well, in order to feel good, in order to think good and do good? And for me, that's 110%. It's having a sense of energy and vitality that gives me capacity and helps me have appetite and motivation and wanting to joyfully embrace life and new experiences. If my
Mm,
physical energy is not there, all of that stuff disappears.
mm,
So, as far as practical things would be for me, is, and I think you've said this actually in a couple of episodes we had, was about turning inwards. Inwards is the outwards that we don't recognize is where we need to go. And it's really tuning back into, if somebody could come along and give you what you need right now, it would make you feel, oh my God, my life is so rich and so abundant and so worth living. What would that be and why?
mm.
And then consider, can you give that to yourself?
Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. I think for me, what that brings up as well is that, like for me, what I was thinking about as you were speaking there and listening to you was around values as well. Like what
Mm,
is important to you? You've talked about energy, Ali. So I think for our listeners as well, like having a think about what's important to you, what's missing right now that, as Ali just said, if you could have that right now, if you could meet that need right now, what's important to you, what's there, what's not there. Look at both of those things. When we look at the things that we value in life, or even just coming back to our values, what's that one value that's really your North Star? And or that sense of, we've talked about this in other episodes as well, whether it might be a sense of fun or playfulness, whether it's a sense of joy and wonder, whether it's a sense of deeper connection in relation to yourself or to others. So, where are things at now? What's going really well? What's missing? What do you want to invite more of? Um, I think just starting to just have all those little reflections on, and we all have those nudges, but having a little reflection on what's important to you, why that matters to you, and what's it going to take for you to either bring that back or to start to create it. I think is what I
mm,
would share. So as we begin to close, what I suspect is one of our the first of many conversations on redefining success in a burnout and post-burnout growth world. Thank you all for listening to the Post-Burnout Growth Podcast, Real Talk, with me, Avril, and my friend Ali. Um, as you've probably noticed, unscripted conversations, the unfiltered truth about our journeys. We hope to also bring in guests who will probably feature in our future podcast episodes. So we will continue this conversation. But wherever you are, we hope you've enjoyed listening to us. If what we've talked about has resonated with you, we'd love for you to follow or subscribe so you can keep coming back to these conversations. And if you know anyone who can be helped by these conversations, please feel free to share these episodes. We'd love to have them join our community. So until next time, thank you from Alison and from me. Thanks for
mm,
listening.
thank, yeah, thanks everyone for joining us. We hope you enjoyed today, and thanks for thinking along with us. Hopefully, you are noodling on some of today's topics, and we're wishing you all the best as you redefine success for yourself.
Bye.